Travis Wayne Goodsoe. Nice and cool, so I've got the windows open so that I don't have to have the fan running. And let's speculate on the fall of the Great and Abominable Church. In section 101, Joseph Smith gives a parable starting in verse 43, and in verse 51 it says, "And the enemy came by night and broke down the hedge, and the servants of the nobleman arose and were affrighted and fled." Now the church manual, as I went over that lesson last year, had accused Mormons of being the servants. Dear God. But no, these are the prophets. These are the false prophets of the Great and Abominable Church. And the enemy destroyed their works, broke down the olive trees. And I never knew exactly what could cause this. I had several scenarios that I'd been going over with you over the probably years as I learned more information. Joseph Smith refers to this in 19 July 1840 that Brigham Young does not want us to know, so he didn't publish it, because Joseph Smith prophesied that Brigham Young would be the one to murder him and take over his church, thus the Great and Abominable Church that Joseph Smith knew. Alright, so it's the B rather than the A, but both should be put together into one document for any extra information. Let's see. He talks about the redemption of Zion, North and South America. 12 stakes must be built up before the redemption of Zion can take place. And those who refuse to gather and build, when they are commanded to do so, cease to be saviors of men, and thenceforth are good for nothing, and shall be cast out and trodden under feet of men for their transgressions. And then uses Reed Peck as an example. And then it says, "We shall build the Zion of the Lord in peace." Yeah, good luck with that. We got 2 years left. I can't get people to understand that. And now that conference is over, I've lost my audience. Literally, everything has flatlined. And some of them flatlined during conference because YouTube made sure of it, because the prophets were pissed. Who let this guy have videos during conference? Because my #1 video on TWG, because they shut down Travis Wayne Goodsoe until the 21st. I've not been able to do videos for 3 months. And why? Because I did the video, false prophet of the Great and Abominable Church, something like that. Church said, shut them down. Shut it down. And they did. And they extended it. They were a bit extreme. But they don't care. They're the law. Even though they tell us a certain law that we have to abide by, and when we don't violate it, they come down and punish us anyway. Yeah, you can't trust people like that. You can have no confidence that they're going to treat you fairly. And that's YouTube. So, what am I to do? I can't attack them. I have no knowledge of computer hacking. I'm at their mercy. They're the aggressors. So there's nothing I can do about it. But I digress. We shall build the Zion of the Lord in peace until the servants of that Lord Did you catch what she wrote from Joseph Smith? We shall build the Zion of the Lord in peace until the servants of that Lord shall begin to lay the foundation of a great and high watchtower. That's section 101. Then shall they begin to say within themselves, what need hath my Lord of this tower, seeing that it is a time of peace, and etc. And then the enemy, this is verse 51, shall come as a thief in the night. And refer to section, or verse 51, for the one blank line to fill in the blanks, which is, and broke down the hedge, and the servants of the nobleman arose and were affrighted and fled. And shall scatter the servants abroad. The 12 olive trees will be scattered, and wake up the nations of the whole earth. Even this nation will be on the verge of crumbling to pieces and tumbling to the ground. When the constitution is upon the brink of ruin, this people shall be the staff upon which the nation shall lean, and they shall bear the constitution away from the very verge of destruction. So, yeah, not going to happen. Mormons have failed on that one. And so, yeah, if Mormons refuse to fulfill the prophecies of Joseph, then yes, Joseph is a false prophet. Church isn't true, because Mormons wouldn't do it. Instead, they destroyed the Constitution. You have Oaks whining and complaining, they took away our religious freedom to practice polygamy. They shut down that video, so that should have been the breakout video of all breakout videos for me. But yeah, the number one video, Nelson changes the temple again. And why? Why did he change it again? Because of me. And you don't believe me, and you don't know how to find the video among the thousands of videos I have. But yeah, I was suing the church. And I have put in to the public record that Nelson had changed the temple text of the law of chastity to bring back polygamy. I knew I was getting screwed, so I made sure to put things in the public record. And I'm the one who gave Holland his heart attack. That's when I filed for the public record about the inverted pentagram they're trying to cover up so desperately, except Nauvoo. I didn't bother to cover it up for that one, but Salt Lake, sure, I'll cover up that one. Did you notice that? Did you guys watch conference and see the pre-show of the temples? All the temples all over the world. They're lavish, expensive, elegant, and expensive, and expensive. And then how many Mormons are able to be that prosperous? Yeah, well, we got to be self-reliant. If we're not rich and prosperous, we're the bad guys. As if they've never even read the Book of Mormon or the Bible. But yeah, they show all the temples straight on so that you can see them. And then the final one, the Salt Lake Temple, and it's behind a gate, behind bushes, and it's looking up. And they pan up, but they make sure you do not see like the other temples. I wonder what they're hiding. I wonder what gave Holland a heart attack. That was put in the public record. As there are people who look for that, who follow judges and their rulings, who follow cases against the church even. And so those people know Alright. And so, with this, I wondered if it was going to be an outside enemy invading America, and going over scenarios with you on how that would happen, how much time we'd have to escape, and stuff like that. Wondering how it would work. But it's not until the Australia case. See, the church is getting sued here in the Australia case. The church has offshore shell companies. That, yeah, tax fraud evasion in Australia. And so, as I went over, and nobody cares, God, people are loud still. The church can be extradited to Australia. And if they try to flee to a non-extradition country, they got to make sure it's both non-extradition for America and Australia. And apparently they didn't care about the laws of Australia, so are they going to know which countries will or will not? But again, they're going to have to flee, or they're going to prison in Australia, which is hilarious if you know about Australia. It was the dumping ground for criminals by the UK. That was their prison. Australia was the prison. And so that's kind of ironic that these British descendants are going to be sent there themselves. With few exceptions, or two exceptions at the end. Three exceptions. Uchtdorf also. But, yeah, hilarious. And so, yes, I can now see how this could happen that way. Australia says, hey, we're going through with the trial. Come on to Australia and extradite you. And so it'd have to be all the prophets, not just Nelson. But, I don't know, this is for the corporation, and the whole profits are on the board of directors. And so it would have to be all of them. And that would be an instance where they would be tempted to flee to a non-extradition country and abandon the church. And that would leave the church to themselves as to decide, what do we do now? Our prophets have fled. Who runs the church? What do we do? And then you'll have all these different people saying, well, I was a patriarch. I was a temple president. I was a mission president. I was a stake president. I have the handbook of instructions. I have the temple text. Everybody fighting for control over the church. And not a single Mormon knowing who to look for. Now, I understand there are a number of people who think that they're the one mighty and strong. I'm aware of those. Not anybody, I haven't really seen anybody talk about the man like Moses. Apparently, even fundamentalist Mormons don't understand the learning of the Jews. But, yeah, there's supposed to be a checklist. You can't just declare yourself the one mighty and strong, man like Moses, Jesus even, the Messiah, whatever. You have to have a foundation of fulfilling prophecy, because nobody's going to know to look for you. But Mormons don't even know that there's a checklist that they're supposed to be checking off. It's Jesus. And we are shown what Jesus looks like. And if Jesus doesn't look like that, what are we going to do then? What are we going to do when, is it just because, well, he comes from outer space, flying, either in a pillar of light or on a space horse? Revelation 19. Mormons don't know about this, apparently. But he just comes down and says, hey, I'm Jesus. I made sure to have wounds in the palms of my hands and in my feet and in my side. Trust me. Look at my mighty works. I'm going to destroy the wicked. That's more of a fear thing of some supernatural being that has power to crush you like a grape with just a snap of his finger. That's not a deity. That's a vengeful God who demands obedience. And so that doesn't fit the checklist. Oh, sorry. You're not him. People would rather believe the fantastic unreal than actually adhere to scientific-based principles to confirm through theory testing and establish logical argument rather than fallacy. It is so frustrating to deal with people who don't want to live in reality. And even worse, when people use bias to then, of their unreality, to judge those who try to use science. You've seen the movie Contact with what's her name? They have a guy from Utah, Panguitch, who becomes the bomber of the first warp hole spaceship. Wormhole, warp hole, whatever you call it. Contact. Yeah, 1997 film. Jodie Foster, yeah, and Matthew McConaughey before he turned psycho weird. There he is, Jake Busey as Joseph from Panguitch. Do you want science speaking to your God? They purposely just don't understand what science is about. And so they put fear into people to scare them away from truth and science and logic and intelligence, keeping people ignorant, keeping people dumb, keeping people idolatrous and superstitious. And so what happens then if Australia actually will be going through with this? This is newspapers that are doing this. This is going to be big, guys. I don't see Australia saying, I know you guys are investigative journalists and you've got all this evidence and documentation, but we did them a favor though. They made us an offer we couldn't refuse. Wow. So it'll be interesting. But if that scenario happens, then you have Mormons left. So what happens then? Well, now we have the Book of Mormon. And it looks like 1 Nephi 22. Alright. And the blood. I want to watch the TV show Psycho. I'm still watching Simon & Simon. The sequel to Psycho was actually very good, even though everybody thought that was the worst thing that could be done with it, but it went on to do 2 more sequels after that, and they sort of ruined it with the 4th one. I veer off topic. But they had a great thing going with the second one, that his mom's sister was pretending to be his mom and committing all the crimes, making him look like a victim who had been traumatized as a child by his mom. And so that would have been awesome of a Psycho twist, that she was responsible the whole time. But then the 3rd one came along, they sort of veered off of that, but they sort of left it so that you could think that maybe he didn't do any of this, that he was just so messed up in the head that he thought he was doing it, and that would have been awesome twist. But no, the 4th one, he acknowledges that yeah, he is guilty and he was about to kill his new wife or girlfriend and ruin the relationship because of his past. And no wonder it ended after that. So, yeah, the blood of that great and abominable church, which is the whore of all the earth, shall turn upon their own heads. This is the Purim theory from the book of Esther, where the one bad guy created a weapon, got the king to issue an extermination order of the Mormons, and Esther, who was the new wife of the Persian king, risked her life to be in his presence and say, hey, if you pass this law, this extermination order, I'm going to have to die too. And he goes, oh no! Well, let's now use that weapon on the guy who is going to use it on the Jews. So that which you falsely accuse in others reveals the same punishment for yourself. Beam in the moat with punishments, which comes from Deuteronomy 19. And so here, Mormons are going to turn upon Mormons, for they, the great and abominable church, shall war among themselves, and the sword of their own hands shall fall upon their own heads, for they shall be drunken with their own blood. And so, yes, I can see that happening, merging that with section 101, the parable prophecy. The prophets flee because of Australia, not wanting to be prosecuted and go to prison for tax evasion. Then Mormons are left, what do? Everybody's fighting for supremacy of leadership. And so, yeah, it gets so heated that people literally start to war. And you've got brother and sister, father and daughter, mother and son, etc. All those combinations, neighbor against neighbor, all fighting for whose president they want to lead the church now. And some will say, no, we need to wait. God will come, Jesus will come from outer space and rescue them, free them from their non-extradition island, sipping Mai Tais and getting tans in their old age, as they've got trillions of dollars in offshore accounts to live off of for the rest of the time, while the rest of us burn with the nukes that Putin's going to drop on everybody. But yeah, I can see this. 1 Nephi chapter 22, verse 13, being Mormons fighting over who's supposed to lead the church now. Because the prophets have fled, who's going to lead the church? And so it's a battle royal, king of the mountain, to see who's going to lead. And I can tell you right now, I will not be fighting for leadership. If any of you are thinking that, if you're going to argue about it, I want no part of it. If you aren't going to follow the scriptures and get out your checklist and go, okay, he's got to be this, he's got to do this, his name's got to be this, his parents' names have to be this, has to be born here, has to be this date, has to be this place, nativity, he has to move to these places, his grandparents' names, this, etc., etc., etc. That's all in scripture. I've been trying to tell you all these years. If you're not going to follow the checklist, you're going to be deceived by the false prophets and false Christs, as there are those who have been. And so, it's just, you didn't even bother to do it for the prophets that are in right now. You haven't checked. Do they fulfill the prophecies? No. And so, yeah, I got a hate comment claiming that Oaks was the man like Moses, and we're supposed to listen to him and obey him. Ban. He does not fit. And I did the video showing how he does not fit it. And so, yeah, this is the collapse. And so then what about the Mormons who do find out the true Christ and go with him in the Exodus to the actual Zion that 19 July 1840 tells us? Southern Illinois, not Missouri. Well, gee, I just did that lesson yesterday for Sunday. Nobody cares about because everybody's gone. Conference is over. Nothing to see anymore. No excitement. Exodus chapter 14. Israel goes out of Egypt, passed through the Red Sea on dry ground. 30th of April. Yep, this becomes that part next, where those who choose to follow this guy complain. We're going back. We're going to worship the Jesus of Mormons. You're leading us to die. We need the sacrament bread and water. You're trying to kill us. Despite him fitting the checklist for an actual prophet, making prophecies that come to pass, actual seer that is able to see the past and the present and the future, and is able to be a revelator of the signs in the heavens for the latter days, and is actually able to be a translator rather than the fraud that Nelson is. Oh my God, he still keeps pushing, let God prevail in your lives. Oh my God. But he's not pushing the chief cornerstone of the cornerstone anymore. But, oh my God. I even saw him do a thing where he was being racist, telling people not to interracial marriage, where he goes over Greek and concerning love, and he spells it wrong. Isn't that part of your education as a medical doctor, to know the Greek and Latin terms for things? And you got that wrong in the spelling? Oh dear God. He is the worst translator. It's amazing he even learned Chinese. But, yeah. there it is, the Exodus. And so right now I can see how that scenario will work. If Australia refuses to prosecute, refuses to extradite, and so the church doesn't have to flee, then we got to wait and see what else is going to happen. But for right now, I see this scenario as a very high potential scenario. First, Section 101, then the Book of Mormon, and then Exodus. So as Mormons are fighting amongst each other as to who's going to rule the church, a group of the Church of the Lamb will come out of Utah and complain and whine. Fine, go back, turn into a pillar of salt, see if I care. Yeah, so here it is. And they said unto Moses, in verse 11, because there were no graves in Egypt, thou hast taken us away to die in the wilderness. Wherefore thou hast dealt thus with us, to carry us forth out of Egypt. Is it not the word that we did tell thee in Egypt, saying, let us alone, that we may serve the Egyptians? For it had been better for us to serve the Egyptians than that we should die in the wilderness. And Moses says, shut up. Giving you so many evidence and you still refuse to believe. Hold your peace. Hilarious.